Chamber at Washington City Hall for our regularly scheduled workshop meeting. Our meetings are broadcast live and stored for later viewing at washingtoncity.org/meetings. We've got a good agenda tonight, Council. You're familiar with the agenda. I'll look to one of you for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mayor.
Motion by Council.
Recording in progress.
We have a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The first order of business is an SUU traffic study conclusion. I'll invite Jason Williams, our police chief, to come forward and introduce that. And we're excited to hear what these T-Birds, I think a few of us up here are also our fellow T-Birds, so we're excited to hear what they have to tell us tonight. Chief.
All right, Mayor, Council, thanks for having us. We just have a brief update on the traffic study that we have been involved in with SUU and their school there. Dr. Park behind us has got a few students here that will present those findings that they were able to put together for us. So I'll first introduce Dr. Park to come up, and he can introduce the two students that will also help with the presentation.
Great, thanks, Chief. Welcome, Dr. Park.
Hello, I'm Seung-Jun Park, an assistant professor at Southern Utah University and assistant professor of criminal justice. So today we'd like to share our research findings on crash prevention in Washington City. So we really appreciate the city, especially Washington City Police Department and Professor Roger Carter and our students actually working on this project.
And we'll welcome Roger Carter. Is it Dr. Carter yet? Congratulations and welcome back.
Yes, so today our student will discuss their research findings on crash prevention, especially 6 crash hotspots in Washington City, and also offer their policy recommendations for future study.
My name is Herman Rodriguez. I'm a junior at Southern Utah University.
My name is Day Coles. I'm a senior. I graduate this Friday.
I'll be there.
My name is Emma Eccles, and I'm a junior at SUU.
My name is Anthony Wright. I'm also a junior at SUU. What is this? Oh, that one worked. Yeah, so the goal of our project was to reduce the crashes in Washington City. We used this with a few theories from criminological theory. These theories are community policing, hotspot policing, and proactive patrol. Community policing, summed down, is when we involve members of the community instead of just relying on our police force. Hotspot policing, the law of crime concentration, kind of states that the majority of crimes happen in very small areas of town. So like 5% of all addresses, street segments are responsible for the majority of crime, and in this case, crashes. Proactive patrol, we just wanted to send our officers and volunteers to these spots before the crashes happened, and we identified high crash times to find the most effective way. There we go. On the map, you can see some of the hot spots. You can't quite see them all. And we found that Monday through Thursday, with Thursday being the highest, are when the most crashes happen. And we also identified that in the times of 3 and 5 p.m. are when they happen the most. You can see at 3 p.m. there were reported 147 crashes. There we go. So the way we designed this study, we used proactive patrol by our volunteers and police officers. We identified 6 crash hotspots and had officers and volunteers there from 3 to 5 p.m. Our current intervention data, so the data that our officers and volunteers collected at these hotspots, is from December 18th through April 18th, and we compared that with calls for service from December 18th to February 3rd. Calls for service data, we included 3 types of calls for our study. PI accident, which is a personal injury accident, so when a driver or a pedestrian has been injured in the crash. PD accidents are personal damage, so when either a building or other cars have been injured. Hit and run, sorry, I couldn't think of a very elaborate one for that.
The name says it all, right?
I know. did all the work for me. The log file and data collection, whenever our volunteers and officers were there, we had them fill out this log file based on what they were observing, and they recorded speeds and overall traffic behavior. And I will give it up.
So this is the first hotspot, and this is 915 West Red Cliffs Drive. The possible causes of this area is, it's a busy area with Albertsons there. There are also many entrances and exits that go into this parking lot, causing many possible collisions in this area. The populated area, along with the flow of traffic, can have an undesired effect of accidents. Recommendations, and because of like how concentrated it is, it's hard for police to be visible in that area. So visibility for police or volunteers, which that is monitored by, it's hard to see any.
Excuse me, so when you say 915 West Red Cliffs, can you point kind of is there a specific area where the crash propensity was higher along there? We know that it turns into Telegraph there at the intersection of Green Spring, but is it just in front of Albertsons, or is it more into that intersection?
So it's more on the intersection. It's right in that right on the left there.
It's more, sorry, but it's gonna be more into this general area.
Yeah,
Okay, so in front of the auto zone by the new Costa Vida, okay.
yeah.
This one is generally the entrance and exits to that parking.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah. So the recommendations would be limiting the turns in this area, so such as possibly making only right turn lanes or only one-way lanes, and also blocking off some of those entrances or exits, so there's not as many like going ins and outs. There's only one accident that was reported in January 2024 at 4:27 p.m., but there were not any volunteers or police there at the time. And so we just also can recommend continuing volunteer and police presence in that area.
Great job, thank you.
So the next hotspot is 865 West Telegraph Street. So it mainly focused on the area in front of the bank. So the possible causes in this area is that it's one of the busiest hotspots. It's further down the street from hotspot number 1. And because there's so many stores, food shops, Walmart, right in this area, it can also add in a lot of traffic. One of our big things that we pointed out as a group was that In-N-Out place, the In-N-Out burger spot, where people turn into the burger spot, and it causes a lot of backflow. It causes a lot of jamming right there, and it can cause a lot of issues for people who are trying to go to work or trying to get home, get kids food, etc. So recommendations to prevent that would be adding a road divider right there, so it can minimize left-hand turns, to add like a long way of like a divider right in the middle that can go on throughout the whole street, so it can go to hotspot 1 into hotspot 2 to help minimize all those turns, so that way congestion can be better. We also thought about coming to Walmart, redirecting that traffic to the Walmart light instead of having that turn into the In-N-Out, so that way we can just move the traffic along. This hotspot has more crashes between June and September, between 12 p.m. and 7 p.m., and it has been monitored by police and volunteers, but because it's so populated, it's really hard to keep up, and you don't want our police officers to get hurt in this area either.
Thank you.
Hotspot number 3 is South Green Springs Drive and West Buena Vista Boulevard. So that's going to be on the opposite side of where we have Telegraph and Green Springs. So possible causes located on the other side of the interstate is its infamous Big Brother. This intersection is one that is currently not as big of a problem, but has the potential to be one, as seen in past data. Possible causes include road speeds, left-hand turns, and just the overall traffic. What we had seen in our research is that in previous years, this area had some traffic and some, not as much accidents, but obviously since the area is continuously growing, it's good to keep an eye on it. More generic patrolling in the area can be beneficial. This is a continuously growing area with a lot of traffic at different parts of the day. Road design and future new highway interchange will also help this area with the congestion that is currently there. Obviously, Washington Main Street's intersection is supposed to open and kind of alleviate the all that traffic that comes off of the interstate towards that area. Reconsideration for time of intervention, as only a small part of the accidents occur between 3 and 5 p.m. So between 3 and 5 p.m., we weren't seeing as many accidents as, for example, in the morning commute between 8 and 1 a.m. There's 19% of incidents that occur between that time, compared to a 15% between 3 and 5. So it's a good time to still look at, but possible reconsideration for different times of the day can also be beneficial. And this spot is monitored by police.
Great.
Okay, hotspot number 4 is 980 Hoodoo Way. We actually drove past that today, and I was like, wow, this is bigger than I thought it would be. But our biggest issue, our biggest concern would be the roundabout and how it's structured. And mostly with like the tourists coming in and like not knowing roundabouts could be quite tricky, not knowing where to go, how to handle that. And then also with our RV drivers, they probably don't know how to do that either, and their big old turns and all that can cause issues too. So this area is very popular for RV drivers. Also for the shuttle pickup and drop-offs, this main issue is more on the far side with the roundabout. And then also I found in the little area behind the gas station, that Maverick, is the Culvers. And because there's no way of knowing if a car is coming around that corner, it can cause an accident really badly, because all you have is the Maverick and then you have the Culvers behind it, and you have this weird looking street in the background that nobody is paying attention to when they're driving around. So recommendations, I would say a big recommendation would be roundabout, take it out, just delete the whole thing. Control delete is part of the thought, but we don't have to do that. So if you do the roundabout, take it out, put a 2-lane road, add a traffic light there. But if not, another good recommendation would be where the Culvers is, putting like a slow down sign, so that way people can know like, hey, there's a curve coming around that corner, or at least let the people who's going around the curve know that there's other cars behind that gas station, there's other things happening behind that gas station as well. This hotspot has been mostly around May, September, and a few in November, where there has been most crashes reported during the intervention. But the highest has been between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So that's mostly where like visitors are coming in and traveling throughout the city.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So on the map, it shows red being the right turn off the roundabout, right? So that's the most crashes, is people turning right,
yes,
right there. Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
Okay, hotspot number 5 is Washington Dam Road and Washington Fields Road. Some possible causes for this area: it is a growing area in the Valley of Washington. Washington Fields plays a key role in connecting the outer valley to the commercial and the interstate. Fields at the time can be treated more as a highway, causing real high speeds. Other causes can also include left-hand turns off of Washington Dam Road. Generic traffic that is only expected to grow as Southern Parkway is completed is also a key factor. So a big part that we had been seeing was speeding coming down that road. I know Anthony personally is a local. I have a lot of friends who are in St. George, and that's kind of what we spoke about. A lot of people treat that as a fast highway road because there's not much intervention happening aside from what we've started. So some key recommendations: just basic generic patrolling can be beneficial to incentivize slower speeds. I was a high schooler once. I know when I see a cop, I put the foot to the brake, and we've seen that generic patrolling and intervention has really helped out with speeds, not only in Washington City, but in Cedar City as well. Generic speed signs and alerts can also be beneficial to help. Reconsideration for time of intervention can also be beneficial. In this area, kind of the same as where we had seen with that other Maverick, between the times of 12 p.m. was where we were seeing more of the incidents that were occurring, which is normally during lunchtime. Between 3 and 5 p.m., there wasn't much going on. So a good reconsideration would be a different time of intervention. And this hotspot was monitored by police.
So this hotspot is 700 West Telegraph Street. This intersection, this is another populated area. This is near the other hotspot, the first and second hotspot. And it has a lot of businesses. It's busy and chaotic, and with all the parking lots there and the busy streets, it's also hard for police to be seen in those areas as well. A possible recommendation would be to limit turns in this area as well, along with what was said before, is like only right turn lanes or only one-way lanes to prevent more collisions because of all the turns that happen in that area. And also another would make people aware that that is a traffic hotspot. Making people aware through signage might help people realize that, oh, I need to be more careful in this area. This hotspot was monitored by volunteers, and there were 6 accidents in this area between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. in the month of just January alone.
So during the course of our intervention, while our officers and volunteers were there, 0 crashes were recorded. And this kind of suggests that our volunteers have a very similar, if not equal, impact to overall crash prevention and deterrence, as well as speeds, because in our log file, so in the data that they are recording, we are showing that speeds are decreasing just as much between the volunteers and officers. And reconsideration of time for a lot of these hotspots would be more beneficial instead of just applying the blanket 3 to 5 p.m. Yeah, and this study just kind of further proves that volunteers are very valuable tools in police departments. Our interventions maybe need a change per hotspot, and if this project receives more support, we can further help the community. And one way, like let's say this project continues, in my data analysis, I was looking at the crashes per address. Number 1 was the Walmart. It had between 130, 150 in our calls for service from 2020 to early 2024. The second highest spot was Crimson Cliffs High School with 100. And so, yeah, if our project continues, I would like to add that as a spot because I'm a graduate from there. I graduated class of 2020. Place holds a dear spot in my heart, and I would like to see those kids safe. Thank you.
What a fantastic presentation. Council, do you have a few questions for these SUU students? Councilman Henderson?
Sure. Great job, you guys. Very professional and I mean, this is really helpful information. Just on a curiosity, personal note, what are all of you planning to do for your careers?
I'm looking into going into developmental psychology.
Awesome.
Since I'm the only graduate, I'm going to Northwestern in Chicago. I'm going to be a forensic psychologist.
Awesome.
So my plan is to go into law enforcement in any capacity.
Excellent.
Next year when I'm graduated, I plan on getting my MBA in aviation management and administration. So a little bit off the wheels with compared to this stuff, but yeah.
Good. Well, you guys are very impressive. So thank you for your presentation.
Any additional comments, questions?
I was just
Councilwoman?
curious, you mentioned that you saw that when you had the volunteers out there that you didn't see as many crashes. Did you have anything that was visible that you're wearing or signs, or how would people be aware that you were there monitoring those areas?
So our volunteers, there were no like signage or anything, and it just depended on the volunteer or the officer who was there. They would occasionally use their flashing lights to kind of signify that they are there. It was also a matter of safety because of the lack of shoulder space on a lot of these roads. They wanted to make sure that they were seen so they were not like clipped by oncoming traffic.
Fantastic.
Just one question. It's as I looked at the data, there's one thing that kind of stood out to me, and that has to do with the times of the year. Now, you would expect, a lot of traffic problems, stacking problems, congestion. I mean, we have a very busy intersection, right? Exit 10 is very, very busy, maybe the one of the busiest in the state. I noticed that a majority of the crashes occur in the summer months when we don't have our seasonal folks living here, and generally it's less traffic. I mean, there's a couple of outliers, but for generally, it was in the summer. Can you kind of shed some light on why you feel like, because to me, just to think of it, I'd think, well, Easter weekend, Labor Day, winter when our population's much higher here. So I'd just be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. My speculation is just that very problem. There's not much traffic, so our drivers can go faster and they can go around each other and have that freedom instead of being stuck behind and no longer going the speed limit. And they're just kind of able to do as they like. that's the kind of my thoughts on it.
I would add, and it's all like location dependent, right? But I would add specifically for like Walmart and Telegraph, and maybe you guys know a little bit more than we do, your locals here, but I would say a lot of it is during those summer months, we have a lot of tourists that are coming to the area. We have a lot of people that are hauling boats, hauling RVs, coming to Sand Hollow, using the recreational spots that are around here. And that's kind of what we saw in Cedar. We saw the opposite. In the Cedar, a lot of our accidents were happening in the wintertime, which is when it's our recreational season, right? So I would say that's a big reason. During the summer, I could say personally, I come in and out maybe twice a week. So, and I know I'm not the only person from Cedar. So I would say the amount of people that we have in that area during the summertime would also have a key role with that.
Great, thank you, Council. Dr. Park, your thoughts on this group of students? It was a fantastic presentation. What would you add?
So we just collected all the data from Washington City Police Department. So we are actually analyzing data using calls for service and log file. So you can see more and better like a detailed information, like a research findings in July. So we'd like to share the report in July so you can have better understanding. And also if you can support the police department to continue this kind of practice, then we can actually cover like a summer month and also like a fall months, because this intervention was actually started in December to April. So we don't know like a full understanding of all the like months. So we'd like to see actually like we can answer more questions and we can understand why do we have these crashes and when do we have these crashes and how we can prevent the crashes. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then before you leave, Chief, will you just come forward and maybe just share a few thoughts on how this will benefit Washington City PD and how this might change the volunteer service and where you prioritize your resources?
Yeah, so we were very impressed with the findings where our volunteers who, I mean, they're a very good resource and they have that same impact in behavior when they're out and about. Their vehicle looks similar to our police vehicles. They don't say police on the side. You may have seen it. It says public safety on the side. But they're able to change that behavior from a driver's standpoint just by being visible and in these areas that were identified as hotspots. So we plan to continue to use them in these areas to help mitigate these crashes and traffic concerns. Part of this was also we've talked with UDOT and other partners as well. Some of these concerns aren't necessarily a police-related issue, but maybe a design factor or infrastructure issue. So, but again, where we can improve that, we will do our best to mitigate these crashes to keep pedestrian and commuters safe. So, but we appreciate our partnership with Dr. Park and Dr. Carter and these students I think they did a job well done. So.
Any further comments? Councilman Henderson?
I'm gonna ask, if I could, it seems like we've talked about some medians there on, Telegraph and, what is it, Green Springs, or, is that still in the works?
So, I can answer a little bit of that. I know that our city engineer is here, and I know that he still has those plans. I know he's looking at those kind of in the context with access to the businesses around there and in kind of the context of overall safety and overall prosperity. So I think that would be a good opportunity for him to come and maybe address some of those at a future time. But we actually just had a similar conversation about that just this morning. So thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. Excellent presentation and valuable information. Thank you. The next item of business, we have 3 more, so we got about 15 to 20 minutes per item. We have a hard stop at 5:30. I've asked, these next 3 are information that has been distributed through the MPO, and the information I think is just valuable for the council and for the community. So I've asked our Assistant Leisure Services Director, Paul Walker, to come forward and present to the council the Southern Utah Regional Trail Standards, and he was a part of this community committee. Thanks for being here, Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome. Afternoon, council and mayor. get this going. So this project started a little over a year ago. We had some cities in the community get together. We started originally to kind of standardize the etiquette on the trails. We want to have the same experience for users throughout the trail system. A lot of times users don't know which municipality they were in, so we just want them to have the same feel no matter where they're at. It turned into a bigger project. There were lots more details and things we could get into, so we actually got some funding from the MPO to hire a consultant to help us make this document. And we're just trying to standardize things and improve safety on the trails throughout the area, regardless of which municipality. One of the things we've talked about that's been a big item is the trail users, who the trail's designed for, what it's for, and what it's not for. We have listed here, we have lots of users for the trail. There's pedestrians, there's bikers. They all have different needs and spaces and requirements they need on the trails. And there are conflicts between those users, so we try and minimize those as much as possible. And there are, of course, prohibited users. And this document kind of outlines that. It basically comes down to a couple things. It's for active transportation, so anything on the trail needs to be active and have some sort of human power. So e-bikes are allowed. People have pedals, they use them. It's not strictly electronic or a motor. And the other thing is the speed limit. So there are e-bikes that can go faster than our posted speed limits, but if they obey the speed limits, they would be allowed on the trail. Things that wouldn't be allowed would be like golf carts and Ciron, some of those bikes that are exclusively motorized, they're not allowed on the trail. So this document does a good job of clarifying that, who the trail is designed for and who the trails are not designed for. Another thing that we talked quite a bit about was the trail classification. Not all trails are exactly the same. They're all designed for the same users, but we have different trails in different areas. The Virgin River Trail is kind of a destination trail. There's a lot of locals that use it, but a lot of people come just to use that trail. So it's kind of a different trail than some of the Canal Trail or Coral Cane. Some of those trails go through neighborhoods, and there's a little bit different feel for some of those trails. And there's a few different requirements in that. We talked about the size of the trail. Depending on the use of the trail and how many pedestrians and how many bikers are on there, the trails may need to be different sizes to meet the level of service we would like to maintain. This next slide shows a way for us to figure out that level of service. It's just a chart. If we get counts of how many pedestrians and how many cyclists per hour, kind of gives us an idea on if that trail is adequate or not. If it's failing, if it's getting a low grade, then we need to maybe consider having a wider trail. The standard for starting for trail is 10 feet, but it could need to go to 12 or 14, depending on the use of the trail. From the counts we've seen, the Virgin River Trail, there's a few peak times during the year where it gets really close to needing to be wider, so it's adequate for now, but the more usage comes on that trail, a trail like that may be one that needs to become a 12 or 14-foot trail.
Paul, can I ask you a question right there?
Yeah.
So do we have the ability, as far as the easement, to be able to widen the trail without having to acquire more, or is that kind of where we're at right now is what it is?
Most of those areas are in fairly open spaces, so space wouldn't be the hardest thing to get those trails expanded. There would be engineering and things involved, but
A typical easement's between 15 and 20 feet, and they usually have that 2 to 3 foot shoulder. So in those kind of areas, you could definitely add a foot or two on each side to get a little wider.
Without a lot of trouble?
Without a lot of trouble, but it definitely, we've seen it grow over the years, that like the Virgin River might need a 12-foot moving forward, and really it's just comfort, right? Whenever I'm on them, I look at it and go, just slow down a little bit on peak times and move around people. He's sitting there knocking e-bikes, and I'm like, I've gone faster than an e-bike on that trail in my own bike, so I know that, I've gone 40 miles an hour on it before, so.
yeah.
I know you can get cruising if you want to, right? It just depends on the traffic load for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the other things that we'd like to standardize is the pavement markings. A lot of our trails, we've got those trails in the open space. It's easy to tell when you're on the Virgin River Trail. Some of these trails, as they go through neighborhoods, they cross streets and the surface may change. So it's nice if we can maintain all those, so people know when they're on the trail system, if we've got a consistent marking on the trail. This shows some options. There's one there with a solid white line. That is for possibly when trails get larger, we could separate them, cyclists versus pedestrians. So it gives some really good recommendations for some of those things as the trails get bigger and need that extra help to keep people safe. It goes in and gives some recommendations on signage. A lot of cities have very little signage on their trails, so this is a good example of what can be used on trails. It goes as far as to specify what material for the signs and for the posts and how far off the trail. It's really good standards for a city that's beginning a trail system. They have everything they need to know to make a quality trail system. And also cities like that, like us with an existing trail system, it gives recommendations that we can add to our existing trail system to improve.
And I like that they're going to be uniform with our neighbors.
Yeah.
Because often people don't pay attention when they cross a boundary from one municipality to another.
Yeah. Yeah, many of the users aren't concerned about which municipality they're in. This leads into the next one. We'd like to unify the wayfinding signage. We've got some of this already, the masthead signs with the logo. They're being used by us in Washington City right now, as well as St. George City. The wayfinding, it can be used despite the municipal boundaries. So we can tie this together. St. George can say how many miles to Sullivan and vice versa. So those users can have a great experience without it being compartmentalized by.
Yeah, almost more by the name of the trail or the landmark destination,
Yeah.
and some of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, we could mark the connections to other trails and things, and it just makes for a really good experience. Back to the etiquette, one of the things we talked about was signage for etiquette. Kind of what we came down to, our messages, we wanted to have two things, kind of what to do and why to do that. So this one, you pass on the right, that's what you do. The reason you do that is to make room for others. So they've got a list of some recommended signage. It includes keeping to the right, using a bell, keeping dogs on leashes, not congregating in dark areas like underpasses and tunnels where visibility is a problem. So they give several recommendations on what type of etiquette signing and where it could be placed. The document goes into extensive detail on a lot of trail and street interfaces. This is just one example of what we would do at a commercial driveway. It includes signage, not just for the vehicles, signs making them aware that there's a trail, but also trail users, signage so they're aware that there's crossing on the trail. Throughout the document, there's a variety of different interfaces with different streets and trails of different sizes and how those would interact with each other. There's, like we talked about, the restriction of motor vehicles. This sign seems to be the one that works the best. It's not really wordy. It gets the point across really well that what's not allowed on the trails. It's easy to read. We have lots of visitors from outside the area. This kind of simplifies it and is pretty clear and easy. They give some recommendations besides signage, how to keep unwanted users off the trail. One of them is this example, a split entry, where it would physically restrict access. Of course, we would still have access open for emergency vehicles and service vehicles, but this is one example that would be safer than perhaps a bollard would be for keeping people off unwanted users off the trail. So some of the ideas behind this is for it could be best practices for a city, just examples of what we could do. Or it could be adopted by a city if they want it to be part of their code. So thanks for the chance for the presentation. We're eager to hear if there's anything you would like us to emphasize or anything you guys have problems with. We would love your input on how to handle this going forward.
Councilwoman Casperson, you work on the Trails and Outdoor Recreation Committee. What are your thoughts on this? I know this kind of came from a regional level, and you may be familiar that this was happening, but maybe hearing it for the first time formally, just kind of your feedback, your thoughts.
Well, I feel like you have, how many meetings did you sit through to?
There was several.
Yeah, I joined in a couple, and I feel like they were very thorough in having the different conversations with multiple people from, having different input for this. And so I feel like they did a really good job, and I appreciate your input on it as well.
Thank you.
Well said. Council, further questions or dialogue with Paul Walker?
Yeah, Paul, is your ultimate plan to adopt this for the city?
It's up to the council. I believe no city has adopted this right now, but there are several cities that are talking about adopting it. The MPO is drafting verbiage so that cities can use that to adopt this as code.
And I'll jump in on that. Just so at our last MPO meeting, that was a recommendation is that the cities across the county adopt this. And so my first thought was, well, we're going to have our committee member, our Assistant Leisure Services Director, present this to the council. And so this is where we are.
Yeah, and I think this is a great document. That my only fear, and it's only because I've designed a few trails in my life, is that is that all of a sudden this becomes gospel, and there's no variance for other things, and that's my fear. Is that 5 years down the road, like, this is our adopted ordinance, you can only do this at these intersections, you can only do this. And what I've learned on trails over these years is there's so many different ways to look at it, and we just have to have common sense on when you apply it and when you don't. And so those are the things that I just want to make sure is that it's more of a guideline that we work with our staff, and somehow in our language we work, and it's not just this is what it is, it's black and white. Because I have a municipality in Idaho I'm working on, and literally they have the whole book just like this, and if you don't do it exactly like this, they won't accept the road. And it makes no sense, because there's areas that make sense to veer off from a road and do different things. I just don't want it to be so hard and fast that because trails are supposed to move with the land, not just be exactly 5 feet off a road and go. I mean, the intent of a trail is to have a feel for it is all. So that would be my only thing, is if we do adopt something, is that we adopt something that these are great guidelines. The signs, I love that. Wayfinding, awesome. But not every scenario requires an engineered trail. Sometimes you got to blend. So that's all.
That's great feedback.
Yeah, and we would love that feedback, because, optimally, we would like to have a trail and a buffer, but we don't always have space for that. So it would be great for some leeway where we can have option to make it work in certain
And you
situations.
like the wayfaring signs and kind of the uniform signage, and I think
as long as they don't say St. George on top.
yeah, we all saw that, but they had 3 on the committee. But we sent our best, so we're okay.
So Paul, I really enjoyed your presentation. I went on a ride this morning, had a great ride, but I did have a problem, and you didn't cover it with any of this. I had a family of raccoons that would not yield the right of way to me. Over by the wood bridge over here. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I almost pass them every time, but.
It's better than the porcupine. I've ran
No, it was a raccoon. It was a
raccoon.
raccoon. 2 raccoons.
Yeah.
They stood and looked at me like, I said, I know you've seen a bike on here before, guys, so but no, I really want to just express my appreciation for the trails that we have. It's amazing the diversity that you see on these trails. You see a lot of people walking by themselves, just a nice, quiet, peaceful walk, and I think this is a great effort for our community, and I think as we continue to grow out, they'll become even more valuable, the trails and trailheads that we have available. So thanks for your work on this. I appreciate the information, and I agree, we don't want anything that locks us in to a way that may not be our way, but having a good broad guideline at this point, I think would be beneficial.
With some flexibility. And maybe the addition of yield to raccoons and porcupines would be
Stay on the right, you know?
Further comment, further discussion? Excellent job. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate
Thank you for
you.
your support.
Okay, sticking with the theme of the meeting, transit and transportation, and the Springdale Transit Line update, I think fits right in there. We'll welcome our city engineer, Paul Mogul, to give the council another update and receive some feedback on this regional project.
Yeah,
Mr. Mogul.
And let's keep the theme of Paul's going too.
And the theme of Paul's.
Okay. All right, so at that MPO meeting, St. George presented on the bus system out to Springdale. And so I just know high level. I don't know the weeds and the dirty details of everything, but they presented on this. And so it looks like it's finally going to happen. We've heard talk of this for years and years, and now it looks like it's on the verge of happening. They anticipate having the bus system going in July. And so with that, here's some of the route. Well, here's the route that they anticipate. As you can see, we're heading out to Springdale. So it starts out here at the Dixie Center. So inbound is coming into town, outbound is going out to Springdale. So there's a bunch of different locations, and they just show the inbound and the outbound routes, just so we're aware. Inbound's coming into town, outbound's going out to Springdale. So the idea is to start there at the Dixie Center. That parking lot doesn't get used a whole lot, so the idea is with some of the different bus routes that go there, to start there at the Dixie Center. And so as it comes in, it would come off the freeway there at what is that, exit 6, and then as it leaves, it would leave that way and get on the freeway right there. It would go south and get on Dixie Drive and head up the freeway. And this, it only shows an outbound stop here at the mall, and there's not an inbound route there. I don't know if they're planning to keep this route. Some of these stops were a little bit flexible on what they wanted to do. But heading out to Springdale, it shows a stop here at the mall to pick up, and I'm sure with all the parking and stuff, that was the thinking there. Here's our stop in Washington. It'll be there by the Maverick there at exit 10. So the idea is to head north on Green Spring, turn up Primavera, and stop there in front of the Maverick, hang a right, turn on Buena Vista, and stop there in front of the Maverick for both inbound and outbound. The next stop is out there at Purgatory. They haven't worked out exactly where they're going to make the stop at, but they want to make a stop out here at Purgatory. They get a lot of people that want to go to the DMV and different spots, and so the thought was to make a stop here. They haven't worked out the details of that yet. Out here in Hurricane, the Walmart that's out there, you can kind of see the inbound and the outbound route there. They've worked with the owner of Walmart. He's good with the location of that bus route there going onto their property, and it looks like they're pretty set on that location. The other one is downtown Hurricane, just west of 700 West, kind of by that Dairy Queen that's there. So inbound and outbound would be about that same location. We have one on the north side, one on the south side of the road. As you head through Laverton, the idea is to stop there, have a stop by that hotel that's there. There's a bunch of things happening there.
And I think the Laverton representative said it may end up being, is that State
Yes.
Street? It may be,
So that,
they have the city might have some property that they moved that stop to.
correct, yep. The city has, so the location of this one's still kind of in limbo. The Laverton City, like the mayor mentioned, said that they have property along State Street on the east side of the road. So the idea is maybe on that outbound one, move it south of the Maverick, wherever the city owns property there, have the spot there, and then maybe on the inbound route, have it by the hotel. Is that,
That's what I heard.
yeah.
But you're right. This was kind of that initial presentation, kind of trying to receive feedback, and I just thought it would be valuable for this group.
Exactly. And then the town of Virgin, they would like a stop there in Virgin. The location of that hasn't been nailed down. Virgin mentioned that they own some, same thing as Laverkin, they own some property. I don't remember if it was on both north and south sides of the road, but they do own some property, and so the location of that, they're trying to pin down exactly where that would be in Virgin. And then the idea of the bus route is to try to give a lot of employees that live in St. George a route to Springdale to work. And as we all know and have gone to Zion, that parking in Springdale is a mess. And so the idea is to try to alleviate some of that with, hopefully, get a lot of the people that live in the area here but work out there in Springdale, is to get them so they don't have to take their cars up there and take some of those parking spots. And so the idea is that they would have a stop here at the Zion, is it Zion Lodge? Is that what that spot is there at Zion Lodge, both inbound and outbound. That's where a lot of your, sorry, I'm gonna go back one. That's where a lot of, this is where a lot of the workers are. This is where you start getting, where the workers disperse to the different areas. And then the last spot would be there on Lion Boulevard. Stop there and then turn around and then go back towards the Dixie Center. They have 4 buses that they have purchased. There was a lot of talk of going hydrogen, electric, and diesel. They've settled on diesel. The price of going electric was similar to diesel, but the infrastructure to get it so that it could charge all those electric buses and stuff would add more cost. And then also they're anticipating an hour and 20-minute bus ride from the Dixie Center to this last stop there in Springdale. And so round trip, I think you're 2 hours, 40 minutes. I think there's a 10-minute stop there. So you're 2 hours and 50 minutes round trip. And with all of that, the electric buses are just barely getting you back in town. And so to provide a little bit more of a comfort zone.
But you can't even say they're running on fumes.
I know.
We've got to come up with a new pun when we get more familiar with these electric buses and cars.
Yeah. So they are hiring 8 full-time employees, 4 part-time employees. The buses will sit 31 people. There will be 31 seats. There will be standing room that you can hold on to. There will also be 2 spots for wheelchairs. If there's no wheelchairs that are needed on the bus, then each wheelchair spot holds 3 seats. And so if there's no wheelchairs, the 31 seats could bump up to 37 seats. They will provide a bike rack, but because of
Headlights.
Yeah, problems with the headlights, the bike racks will only be able to hold about 2 bikes. And so there will be a bike rack, but there'll be some limitations to that. And trying to think of any other.
So does a bus leave every hour, or what's their plan?
So they did a study in 2018, 2019, and in it, that study said for the bus to leave every 2 hours. And by doing that, you would get this amount of life out of your buses. The buses, I think, usually get about 500,000 miles. And so for, I think, a 10-year period, you could get about a 10-year lifespan out of a bus doing that. Now, if you add more trips in there, then obviously the bus life goes down. They said, however, they're open. They're not set in stone on what they're gonna do, but there was talk about maybe doing every half hour for the first little bit for a period of time till you hit like 9, 10 o'clock, and then maybe space it out for 2 hours. And then when workers get off work, then go back to like every half hour, hour increment to get people from Springdale back. So they're pretty flexible on what they're gonna do. They're gonna run the system, and again, I don't know if it's gonna be half hour, hour increments. Do that, see what what the bus ridership is, and then kind of go from there.
So Paul, who's paying for this?
So it's there'll be a fee, there'll be a bus rider fee. When they did that study in 2018, 2019, they come up with a $8 fee, but that was 2018, 2019 money. And
So it's $800 today.
yeah, exactly.
Well, that's my question, because, and if I know anything about public transit, it never makes money. So who's paying the other half of the bill? Is it us? Is it St. George City? Is it Springdale? Is it the
So-
MPO? Who's covering the cost? Is it UDOT?
So can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
There was a $15 million seed that came in to get the program going. And you may or may not be aware of this, but they got 6 or 7 buses parked out at the airport that have been there for 2 months. So they're all here. It's just a matter of getting the system kind of up and going. I think they waited to make sure they got the buses here in town before they, said, okay, now let's pull the trigger on everything.
And that was from UDOT.
That was actually a transportation seed that
Grant,
came in.
yeah,
It
okay.
wasn't UDOT, as
UDOT
I
helped
recall.
it, though.
UDOT encouraged it, yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
I just
they
remember
did, but-
hearing the discussion on it, and I think my concern is, even with the Suntrans we have through our city, is I guarantee it doesn't cover itself.
No, it doesn't, but the cost of the buses and the cost of getting it up and running, and then I guess the idea is, at least back then, was that the ridership is gonna cover the cost of operations from that point on, and some money would be set aside for, when the time comes for the changeover in buses at the end of life, so it should somewhat cover itself, in that regard.
So you're saying it's an $8 per day trip up and
So-
back, or?
One way, $8
Yeah,
one way.
so that's someone paying $16. So say it's even math, we're paying $20 a day to drive up and back. Is it gonna be used? That's my concern, is it really gonna be used? And I guess we don't know until we try it, but I am concerned that it won't be used.
And I just had, Councilman, those are good points. They didn't really ask us that. This was at the MPO, this was, here's what we're doing. And I thought, well, my council deserves to know this, so.
I appreciate
From
it.
Washington, it's an 80-mile round trip, right? So 25 miles a gallon. It's not too far off from the actual cost of, purchasing fuel for somebody that needs to
I know the road maintenance and the capacity that the roads can handle is a big concern too, in addition to the parking, but.
And I'd hope that we would encourage not just the employees, I hope we encourage people to stay in our area and take the hour-and-a-half bus ride up to Zion. Like, I would hope that we would promote that. I don't know if they are, because, I don't know, if I had to deal with the parking you have to up there, it might be worth just, okay, I'll go park in the parking lot here and just enjoy myself for an hour and a half, and me not drive and be frustrated when I get there.
Right.
And it's worth, the $8 or $10 to ride up there over that.
Right, and one of the things they want to try to keep the stops low so that it does, because if you got 1 million stops, no one wants to take that ride. Also try to keep the cost down so that it is favorable to ride up there. And I believe most places up there in Springdale now charge for parking, and it's roughly about $20 or more for parking. So to ride the bus, like you mentioned, if it's now $10 and you got a $20 round trip, that's about the cost of parking.
I think that the thought is that they want to kind of leverage the fact that there's not a lot of parking in Springdale. And they're not willing to open up more parking. They want to kind of drive people to this. And Mayor, just want to just add that the little Suntran committee that I help out on, this was exact, accurate information that we've had. They've had the buses for a while. They're hiring drivers, and they're excited about getting it going. I think the time's right for it. But of course, what we'd like to see in our community is less cars traveling back and forth and using the buses more. So I imagine there could be some adjustment going forward to try to incentivize that. But it'll be good for our community, I think. I think it's an example of something that we've seen a need and that they've utilized a means to try to accomplish a goal of cutting down traffic on the roads and congestion in Springdale. So.
Additional feedback, thoughts? Paul will give you the last word.
It'd be awesome if it gets up and going, and be cool to take a ride on it. Because yeah, we've heard about this forever, and to finally have it in place, I think would be good. It'd be awesome.
Hey, you did a great job. Thank you for your preparation and for presenting this information to us today. We really appreciate it, and everything else you do in your role.
Well, thank you.
We'll talk about the hot spots later. Thanks. Okay, the last item we have is an Ironman 70.3 update. We'd like to invite Chad McWilliams with Greater Zion and Washington County to come forward and present. Glad to have you here today, Chad.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All these traffic impact things to make it smoother around, and then I'm going to disrupt it for a day. And so we'll kind of give you a, just make sure this all works here really quick.
As long as you let the buses through.
Yeah, we've got some school buses going out to San Hollow and back. So we're here, my name's Chad McWilliams with Greater Zion, the sports and adventure manager for the county. I've been there now, we were just actually, Brittany and I were talking about it, 2 years, I think today. I came from Sevier County, and so the chief, I can tell him some of the issues you can fix with traffic is just like growing up. We just put a mannequin inside of a police vehicle, parked it on the side of the road, and that's how we grew up in Sevier and Wayne County, and that was the way it slowed us down. But we're grateful for this opportunity to come and talk to you guys a little bit about the Ironman this year. It's May 4th, it's coming up. But before we kind of get into this year, we've got to recap last year so you can kind of see what we're looking at for this year. So a quick little 3-minute video of last year's highlights.
It is a simple piece of paper. Yet its significance is undeniable. For every athlete, their race number is a symbol of the commitment and hard work required for this grueling competition. It represents the countless hours of training, the sacrifices made, and the dedication to achieving a personal goal. But it is also a reminder that no one is alone in this journey. Each successive number represents a fellow athlete, a competitor who is also pushing themselves to the limit. And then there are those amazing volunteers. Year after year, they are the backbone of this event as they lend support to those wearing numbers, embracing their journey, and supporting their Ironman dreams. Despite the challenging conditions for what is widely considered one of the toughest Ironman 70.3 races, athletes from around the world come together to test themselves on this iconic course, as together they experience the camaraderie and the spirit of America's Southwest.
This is my first time doing an Ironman, and carrying that number across the finish line is going to be a great feeling.
I feel like my race bib number, after wearing it on the course and doing all that, it's the equivalent of my finish medal.
So whether it's your first Ironman 70.3 or your 10th, whether you're aiming for a personal best or simply looking to finish strong, each race number serves as a powerful symbol of the determination and the passion that drives us all to take on this extraordinary challenge. This is more than just a race. It's a celebration of the human spirit and a tribute to the power of perseverance. It is a gathering of numbers, each with their own significance and meaning, coming together to create a shared experience that will be remembered for a lifetime.
It's a great day for Thomas and myself.
So the individual that was in that push-pull cart, the handicap one, they travel all the way from France just to be to this event, because it's regarded as, we'll kind of get into that, as you haven't done Ironman unless you've done it in St. George, you know. And I say St. George, but I mean all of Washington County, the Greater Zion. You know, it takes each one of our partners, our communities that make this truly a classic event, like we'll get into in a second. But by the numbers from last year, in 2023, we had 1,700 athletes who traveled here. We figured the number was down a little bit because of all the world championships back to back to back. It was kind of we want to say an Ironman PTSD a little bit. Everybody's been here and done it. And so this year we're looking at right now, I think there's just about 2,200 athletes who are registered to be here next week. So we're kind of excited with that number. And we hire an outside agency to do the surveys of all the athletes and the people that are coming through the registration tent to find out where they're staying, how much they're spending, how many people they're bringing with, how long are they here. So we put that as 15, just over 15,000 visitors who were here for this event. The economic impact of that for why they're here pre-race, during the race, and right after, around $10 million, just over $10 million, and just north of 2,000 volunteers for what it takes to put this event on. I was out biking in Snow Canyon this morning, and a lot of the professionals are starting to show up, and they're racing it hard this week, and then they'll start to taper off over the weekend and next week. So we already have a good handful of Brazilian athletes that are here already. That was pretty much about 20 of them I rode with this morning. So there's a good amount of people who are already starting to show up, and you guys have seen that probably on your roadways as you're out and about now. You know, one of the things that I kind of like this quote, and I like to use it in a lot of my things, that if you guys have seen it, early a church leader, this was a poor and worthless place, you know, this Washington County area. And so, and one of the things I like to say is, how did we go from a poor and worthless place to the number 3 most globally recommended race in the world? So 120 70.3 events around the world. This is the number 3 most recommended one that you have to do. We kind of joke that, you know, people say that, oh, we just did Oceanside. Well, that's cute. Well, have you done St. George? Because it is really considered one of the hardest races in the world also. You guys know that it's bookended by Sand Hollow and Snow Canyon. You don't get that in a lot of places. A lot of places that you go to, that I've done Ironman in different communities in different states, is a lot of out and backs, just back and forth on the same road for 56 miles on a bike, 13 miles on on foot, and it just kind of gets a little old. So we are very fortunate. It's becoming more and more difficult, but we are very fortunate to have a route that we have in our area right now. Leads us into May 4th, the Ironman 70.3. This is the 10-year anniversary of the 70.3. You kind of say, well, how does that work? Because we've been going through since 2010. The first 2 years were full distance Ironmans. And then we took a timeout for COVID, and then we threw in 3 world championships in the middle of all of that, or towards the end. So this year is the 10th anniversary of the 70.3. So that's kind of how we get that. People have kind of been like, well, 10 years, well, I've done it since 2010. So, but that's kind of where those numbers come from. This was our first winner, Brett. He came across the finish line in 3 hours and 51 minutes. The record last year was 3 hours and 40 something minutes. So it's not far off of where we were even back in 2013. So this year, again, what's anticipated is right around 2,200 athletes that'll toe the line to get in the water on May 4th. So for those who are unfamiliar with the Ironman 70.3, it's a 1.2 mile swim out at Sand Hollow, a 56 mile bike ride throughout the county, and then a 13.1 mile run downtown St. George. Now, I can get into later offline, you know, more specific turn by turns, but I'll just kind of give you guys just a brief little overview of the route. We come out of Sand Hollow, down SR7 onto SR9 in Hurricane. We come across Hurricane or SR9 to Telegraph, once on a Telegraph into Washington City, then we go up Washington Parkway over the overpass. So the last athlete to kind of leave the area off of that east side of the freeway would be roughly right around 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. Then more than likely within about those 2 hours, knock on wood, if there's no incidents, they'll start clearing up your roadways and kind of getting some of those that have been shut down opened up by, like I said, the last athlete is anticipated to go over the freeway at 11 o'clock. So not too bad starting. It's the first athletes get in the water at 6:50 in the morning. A little chilly, but they're out there moving. So once off over Red Hills Parkway, they're going to go down Green Springs and onto Red Hills Parkway out on in the industrial kind of area of St. George, across underneath the Dixie Rock over to Snow Canyon Parkway, up Snow Canyon, and then down SR18 into St. George, or, you know, a little turnaround in Ivins, but pretty much the exact same race course we've used for the last 3 events in here with the World Championship. So nothing has changed.
On the swim and the bike.
Yeah, the swim and the bike. And so nothing's changed. And there's a little half miles change on the run route itself. Looking at the run route, it's the same. We transition in St. George at the Washington County School District parking lot is where they'll get off the bikes, transition to the run, and then they'll start up. I like to say races, well, the diagonal is kind of flat looking, but it's an uphill run the whole way. So they'll go up Diagonal Street to Bluff, and then from Bluff, there's a little tunnel there that goes underneath to the west side of Bluff Street. So they'll go up there to 1250 North, do a little half loop around, there's a chapel, an LDS chapel right there on 1250. They'll go halfway into that, come back down, and then they'll run through the iconic Dixie Red Hills Golf Course through there, like they have. They use mostly cart paths and then one fairway. They find a little cool relief running on that grass area. And then they'll come back downtown to the finish line, and they'll do that twice. So we've took out the Vernon Worthen Park area. It's just too much of an impact. It's too expensive for traffic control and through all those neighborhoods. And so that's kind of where that change and the reasoning came across for that change on that particular run course. Some key dates and times to think about. Obviously, they're going to start rolling into town square in St. George. We'll be starting on Monday. You'll start to see trucks. They're already actually at the old hospital now. They're just waiting for Monday to roll into there, and they'll start building the tents, bringing all the merchandise, and start that full build out in town square. The athletes will start to check in on Thursday, May 2nd. So they'll start in at 9 in the morning. They'll be here all day checking in and getting their accommodations worked out. Friday, May 3rd is the Iron Kids event, which is, it's always kind of fun to see the kids run across that finish line and around the roundabout downtown and kind of through some of those areas. And it's a really fun event because they come onto the same finish line the professionals do. And then Saturday, we've already got most of the jokes. Nobody really thought about this, and it's not that we would have changed it, but may the 4th be with us on that day, you know. So the pros, again, they start at 6:50 in the morning. So hopefully the water temperature will get we get this nice, beautiful weather. It'll come up to maybe that 70 degrees. We're not sure if it'll get quite there, but the age groupers will then hit the water, a rolling start every 5 seconds, starting at 7 a.m. So there'll be a wave of swimmers that'll jump in the water each time. The pro finisher, so if you want to come down, and this is where we kind of recommend, the pro finisher should come across the finish line right around 10:35, 10:37, based on a couple of the pros that'll be here, their running times and their average. So if you're at the finish line at 10:30, it's a great time to be there. So, and then my favorite personally is the final finisher at 4:30. You know, that's when the cutoff is 4:39, but at 4:30 should be the last finisher across the finish line. And like I said, the guy came across dancing with a big sombrero last year, and he was just having a good time to music. I think it's more of a hype for that last guy to come across than it is for the professionals. But we've got a new thing this year with the way Ironman's changed things up with the professional fields. I actually just got a text and an email while we're sitting back there. They've just announced the pro lineups, and there's just over 100 professionals who will be here in this area, and that's almost double what we've had the last couple of years, minus the World Championships. So we're really grateful for each one of the partners and the communities. We know it's a challenge. We know you get a lot of heat from your residents, and we're trying the best we can. It's actually a year-long conversation of the route, the best route that's least impactful. And we have a lot of routes that we like, but a lot of them have trickle-down effects. This might make sense here, but then it closes off this other area. It's kind of the problem with growth. It's really kind of squeezing some of these big events out a little bit. And we know it's difficult. And traffic impacts, if you haven't started to see them come into your neighborhoods, if you're along the affected route, you should start to see those any day in your mailboxes on how to get around. Everybody can get around. It's just a little more patience we ask for, a little more understanding that day. But like I said, Washington City's side should be out by 11 o'clock. You know, that should be the last athlete, and they'll be over on, in the Green Springs area. And then so they should be kind of out and out of your areas. We are looking, we do one more year, 2025 is another 70.3 on May 10th. Of 25 right now, and so then we'll be in negotiations with Ironman on what that looks like past 2025, and where we can go. Like I said, we are constantly looking. We know a point of is the interchange out at 13 in Washington Parkway with the roundabout. I agree. We gotta rip that thing out. It would make a lot of things a lot easier for that area. But we know the growth is making it a little more challenging, and we're constantly looking for new routes that are they're not as impactful, but it is definitely a challenge. I know that early on Ironman thought of, and some of the race directors and the guys don't live here, so they don't fully get some of the dynamics of the traffic. And I will tell you, one of the first things that was kicked to me to look at and review was, we're in and out, Burton, Green Springs and Telegraph. And I just said, stop, nope. We killed that like the second that map came up, so we're constantly looking and taking feedback. And a couple Ironman athletes, Curtis Sprague with St. George City PD, we've probably ridden a few routes 100 times trying to find a new route that just is not going to hurt as bad in some areas. So we're constantly taking recommendations. Any questions on neighborhood impacts, I'll take them offline. I've got to go. I have 150 pages of traffic control. So if you ask me now, I have no idea. But we can look it up. But I just know about 11 o'clock is the last athlete in you guys' resident areas.
Feedback from Chad.
I don't see any mention of our pancake breakfast on here.
What's that?
Our pancake breakfast. It's a big deal.
Yeah, we're hoping. We were actually just talking about that this morning. We're trying to build. We were asking for another partners where they're doing theirs also, and like, hey, we really would love to push this out. We found your guys' on social, and I think I talked to Jeremy a couple weeks ago and got the information for yours. yours is one of the fun ones to attend there at Main
Ours
Street.
is the funnest, and this year we're bringing back the custom grill that we pull on a trailer. So none of this prepackaged food. Get your spatulas, council. Get your aprons. We're all in, and if you're lucky, if you make your rounds again, Chad.
We'll be making the
group,
rounds. Brittany and I were just talking
you know.
about that this afternoon before I came here, that we've got to make some stops in Hurricane and to yours to make sure because that's kind of our fuel, because we've been out at San Hollow since 5 in the morning.
We'll feed you a hearty Washington breakfast for sure.
No, we appreciate the partnerships and with each communities, and we know that it's a hard event to pull off, and it's impactful.
There's the builder of the grill right there. Andy Stevens built the grill.
But yeah, hopefully we can continue these long-term, partnerships with these events, and if you have ideas, that's kind of what I do, is just go after these bigger events that hopefully I can put somewhere that's not as impactful, but we still make the economic impact into the communities. So,
Councilman Coates, you know what this is all about. What are your thoughts?
Thoughts are it's another great year for Ironman. I love it. So wish I was doing it
again.
I would too. I'm not the same way. They've told me no a couple times. I can't be gone. So,
any other feedback? Chad, we appreciate all you're doing. We
Thanks,
recognize that the mission of Greater Zion is to lift and benefit the entire community, and I appreciate you recognizing the sacrifice that not just our PD, but our employees. In fact, I was talking to our city manager, who I failed to excuse. He's on vacation this week, so excuse him. But even he will be out there manning an intersection. And so it really is all hands on deck, from parks to PD to public works and up and down the line. But we recognize that this is an important event, that there's a lot of benefit to the city. And so we remain a willing partner as far as I think myself and this council are concerned.
Well, we appreciate that. I know that yours is one of the communities that does kind of put in a lot with your employees and the PD, and the lieutenant has been great to work with all the time. It's like when we have a question, we call, and we're trying to
and I think we've even got the banners up on
yeah, we
Telegraph
appreciate
and
you
Main.
putting those
So
up. And I know I'll be out visiting with a couple businesses on Monday with Ironman and talking to
Great.
them and trying to help find some solutions for them and for their employees on that specific
and thank you for
rate.
being so thorough. I think the communication really helps.
Yeah.
And frankly, we recognize we've done this enough times that I think the community realizes, what it is and how to get around that morning.
We're always looking for improvement areas, and I just think it's a great event, and we're always looking for how to do it more. And you can get all the information is ironman.greaterzion, has the traffic impacts, the maps. So you can go to, like I said, greaterzion.com, follow the Ironman links, and that can get you all the details if you want to see in a specific area you don't live in that you might be traveling to, spectator locations, all of that kind of stuff. That will be great. But we know the best spectator location is at Main Street.
Top of Main, you know it is.
So, appreciate you guys.
Hey, Mayor, we just have a couple of minutes. Can I ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
Just about 2 minutes. So would you close or end your comments with how the economic benefit or the economic income benefits our residents at a very fundamental level? How does that money help?
So
I think a lot of people
the way
would
the
like to
money's
know that.
collected, so where it's at, that it's kind of that economics, that dollar spent 7-8 times, when it comes back in. The money's collected for the economic impact or the benefit to the communities. We collect it through the Airbnbs, the hotel taxes, the short-term rentals. That's where that transient room tax is then paid. That's then remitted back to the state, and then the state remits it back to the county, and then we put it back into the communities, say, in your parks, in your trails, and some of those kind of things. Some of what's the new, your All Abilities or skate park, I'm not sure what.
We have a Wills Park,
Yeah.
and I've communicated very clearly that we are very excited to have applications in for TRT funding at any and every corner going forward, especially with our new hotels coming in. So we have put in that sacrifice, and so we are willing recipients of the TRT funding that has been throughout the county, and we recognize that going forward we want to be an even bigger part of the recipients of that. So,
and that's what we know, and that's kind of where we've talked about, Randy and I've talked about with Leslie, our destination development manager, and we've kind of make sure some of these municipalities know that you should be applying for some of that from us if you've got a good project that's going to put visitors. We know visitors.
All
are-
of our projects are good projects.
Yeah.
We've got many applications coming in.
They're always great projects.
We're
just
going to
need
make up for lost time and
Yeah.
disproportionate receipt of those fundings. But
Yeah.
you did a wonderful job, Chad. Hang around a little bit. We're gonna break and ask you to stay around. If council has additional questions, we'll do that. And thank you for being here. It's going to be another great event. Council, this time I'll turn to you for a motion to adjourn the work session.
So made, Mayor.
Motion by Councilman Ivy.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Casperson. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll be back at 6 o'clock sharp. All right, we'll get started here with our regular meeting this evening. It's Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. We're here in the council chamber of Washington City Hall for our regular meeting that is also broadcast via YouTube live, linked online at washingtoncity.org/meetings. And it is also archived on our city website for later viewing. We are grateful for our affiliation and partnership with the Interfaith Council, and we're pleased to have Lara Fairchild with the Baha'i Faith here to start the meeting.
Thank you very much. Like you said, I am a member of the Interfaith Council. It's one of the many gems of this area. On the Interfaith Council, I represent the local Baha'i community. It is the first Baha'i community in southern Utah. Though small, not insignificant. I'd like to share this prayer with you today. O God, my God, these are thy servants. They are thy loyal bondsmen who have bowed themselves before thine exalted utterance and humbled themselves at thy threshold of light, and borne witness to thy oneness, through which the sun hath been made to shine in midday splendor. They have listened to the summons thou didst raise from out thy hidden realm, and with their hearts quivering with love and rapture, they have responded to thy call. O Lord, shower upon them all the outpourings of thy mercy. Rain down upon them all the waters of thy grace. Make them to grow as beauteous plants in the garden of heaven, and from the full and brimming clouds of thy bestowals, and out of the deep pools of thine abounding grace, make thou this garden to flower, and keep it ever green and lustrous, ever fresh and shimmering and fair. There is none other God save thee, the Lord of manifest tokens and signs. Amen.
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. Set the perfect tone for this meeting. Council, we do not have need to go to closed session this evening, so I will turn to you. Oh, yeah, thank you. I've asked Councilman Coates to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Thad.
Does everyone please rise and repeat after me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got to get the pledge and the prayer in before we get into our agenda. So we do not have need to go to closed session this evening, so I'll turn to you, Council, for a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Belliston.
Second.
Second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. As far as announcements go, we are into Cotton Days officially. The second grade field trips have been going this week so far. The community center is our first ever, our first in at least a long time, if not ever, cotton ball. Fortunately, we're not able to be there tonight. And I'll just maybe go through a few of the events that you might be interested in or the public might be interested in for the rest of the week. Of course, all of this information is at cottondays.org. But tomorrow, April 25th, from 7 to 9 p.m., that's on Thursday, is the concert in the park right here at Veterans Park. On April 26th, Friday at 6 p.m., is the unveiling of the Eric Dowdle painting turned puzzle. So we are excited about that. That's going to be a really exciting community event. And then after that, we will have a movie in the park at 7:30 p.m. We're watching the movie Up. And then the next morning, Saturday, April 27th, we'll kick that off at 7 a.m. with the Lions Club cooking breakfast at the Pavilion. I'll be doing a mayor's walk on the south side of Telegraph, so we'll hit the Relief Society Hall and then head over towards the Cotton Factory. There's also the Cotton Days 5K down at Sullivan Park on the trail system. The parade starts at 9 a.m. and the Cotton Fest activities, primarily here at Veterans Park, are immediately following the parade, so around 10 a.m. There's also the Heritage Show down at the Relief Society Hall, the car show at Nyson Park, and the tractor pull at the vacant lot to the west. And then on Sunday evening, April 28th at 6 p.m., there is a fireside at 6 p.m. here at the church. And we welcome and recognize our grand marshals this year, which are former Mayor Terrell and Marilee Clove. And so they will be at all of these events and also at the fireside. I believe they'll have a role in that fireside that night. The only other event, council, is Ironman, as we just talked about in our last meeting, is coming right up on us. So May 4th at 8 a.m., top of Main. Bring your heavy-duty spatula and your city apron if you have one. And I'll be turning to you to do all the heavy cooking, and I will be socializing as I usually do. What announcements did I miss?
Mayor, I just mentioned that the Washington County Children's Justice Center expansion ribbon cutting, it will be Monday the 29th at 10 a.m. there on their 500 South and like 440 East, I believe.
That's another beautiful sandstone, Southern Utah Dixie type building. That'll be a great event. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is declarations of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare this evening? Seeing none, it will be my opportunity at this time to read a mayoral proclamation declaring April 26th as Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climates by reducing the erosion of our precious soil, our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore I, Cress Staley, Mayor of Washington City, do hereby proclaim April 26th, 2024 as Arbor Day in Washington City. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations, dated this 24th day of April, 2024. There you have it. And as we speak, we do have an Arbor Day celebration happening right now at Green Springs Park, and we want to maintain our title, our designation as a Tree City USA, and even the growth awards that we've received recently. So plant a tree, sit under a tree, enjoy the trees, whatever you do. Next item of business, council, is the consent agenda. This consists of the approval of minutes, consideration to approve the minutes from the city council meeting of 4/10/2024, and the board audit report. This is consideration to approve the bank card from February 2024 and the board audit report from March 2024. I'm confident each of you reviewed that one more time. And that it is accurate this time. So council, I will turn to you for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as outlined.
We have a motion by Councilman Coates,
Second.
a second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved unanimously. Thank you for your work on that, Brian. The next item is award of bid. This is consideration to award a bid for the Washington Fields Sewer Line Project to be awarded to Landmark Excavating, Inc. in the amount of $1,287,780. And Lester Dalton, Assistant Public Works Director, will present to you on this item and answer questions that you may have. Lester.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. We opened bids on this last week. We had advertised it pretty extensively. We had a really good turnout at the pre-bid meeting, and then when it come time for bid day, we only had 2 bids turned in. We were a little bit concerned, but after we had opened the bids, Landmark Excavating was the apparent low bid, and we reviewed everything heavily. It's right in line with the engineer's estimate as well as the second bid we received, and we feel confident that this will be a good project, and we feel like we've got a good contractor on it. One thing to note about this project, besides just the sewer line installation on Washington Fields Road, as well as 2000 South, we'll also be doing a reconstruction project of a portion of 2000 South. The bid documents, we're carrying that from pretty much the 20 East intersection all the way back just short of the Sandia or the Washington Fields Road intersection with that full depth reconstruction. We've been working on this project pretty heavily. We're combining not only sewer impact fee funds to do the construction as well as road maintenance monies.
So are both, you said there's some road improvements, is that included in this as well, or are we
It
gonna do a
is,
separate?
that
one?
is included in this as well. So one big, it's actually a huge component of this project, and we got pretty in-depth with contractors and in the bid, and you can notice it in the bid tabulations. Traffic control and traffic impacts are going to be really significant with this project, both on Washington Fields Road and on 2000 South. So just be ready. It's going to be a huge impact, and we're going to do everything we can to minimize that as much as possible.
I don't have a question on this, but before we leave, I just like to ask a question to your staff about how we manage our traffic control of shutting down lanes. So I don't want to interrupt this, but maybe afterwards.
Okay.
I'd like to discuss some of that.
Be happy to. Do we have any questions about the bid or?
Yes, I do. Number 7, where it says groundwater mitigation and soil stabilization, that seems to be the biggest discrepancy between the bid that we would like to accept tonight being $25,000 and Sunrock's price being $235,000 for groundwater mitigation and soil stabilization. Can you kind of explain, and then the engineer's estimate was right at $100,000. Why such a big discrepancy there, and is that any reason for concern?
It was a reason of concern, and we kind of dismissed it pretty significantly because it just so happens that Landmark Excavating has actually installed a portion of this outfall line through the subdivision that they recently constructed right there on Heritage Fields Drive, or not Heritage Fields Drive, but Heritage Place, that subdivision. They did the work on that, and we also, in cooperation with that developer, we paid a portion of that sewer line going through through his project. So this particular contractor is very well aware of the conditions in that area, and they felt comfortable with their number, and we did specifically talk with them about it. They just they don't feel like it's gonna be a big
finished a
deal.
lot of that work, so they're not currently mobilized there, or are they still?
They might still be a little bit of stuff in the area, but they
Okay.
won't have the equipment in the area to do this project, I'm sure.
At what depth are you finding water there? I mean, just kind of get an idea of.
They were getting into the water at about 6 feet.
About 6 feet,
Mhm.
okay.
And on average, this line is running 6 to 8. We're trying to maintain it fairly shallow because We still need to turn and run south a long ways, and there's not a, we're in Washington Hills.
Along 20 East?
Yes. That will be the next phase of this project, will be an extension from 20 East to Merrill Road and possibly turning and going west on Merrill Road.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Further questions for Lester? I'm happy to entertain a motion on this bid.
I'll make a motion, we approve the award for $1,287,780 to Landmark Excavating, Inc.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates, a second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That bid is approved unanimously and awarded to Landmark Excavation, Inc.
Mayor, can I ask the
Go ahead.
Lester a question?
Yes.
So my question has to do with shutting down roads for a short time versus a long time. Just, I mean, right now we have a road on Telegraph that shut down a lane, and I'm just wondering what is our minimum process to shut that down, because I'd hate for it to be there for multiple weeks while they work on a driveway.
Right, and that's something I'll have to check with John. He's the one that issues the permits on
Okay.
that. I'm not sure where they're at exactly with that in particular project, but we're
just-
trying to get them built back as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and I know there's certain circumstances for some things, but the last traffic control sat out on the 300 East for a long time, and I just would like to, I just want to understand what the process is, so we're not, I mean, I understand you have it for reasons, but I hate that they're shutting down a whole lane of our traffic for driveway approach all the time. Like, it should be why they're working on it and then pull it back and kind of working with it. I just don't think we should allow them to shut down traffic on our main corridor road through our city for weeks on end as well.
Thad?
Council, as you're aware, anytime that we plan to close a public road, we require that it come before the body for approval. We do have a different standard for construction activities that won't close the whole road. And I think you're raising a good point of something we maybe should look at and try to define a little better, and maybe even let the council take a look at it.
Good
Thank
points.
you. And sorry for bringing that up. It's
No,
just been on
this-
my mind, and we're talking about closing down roads and the impacts, and so.
That's why each of you are elected, and to look out for those kind of things. Thanks, Lester. Appreciate the hard work you're doing, even if we don't even see this after it's all paved over and done, but, you know, we all appreciate the work you're doing there.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Cal.
And we'll move on to item 7. We have 3 resolutions to discuss tonight. The first one, 7A, this is consideration to approve a resolution accepting the 2024-2025 tentative budget for Washington City and setting the public hearing date for May 8th, 2024. I'll invite our Finance Director, Brian Brown, to come forward and just kind of remind as he's coming forward, I'll just remind the council that we are setting the public hearing date for May 8th, 2024, and then it would be in a subsequent meeting that we would adopt the final budget. So you'll have a few more stabs at this, but this is part of that budget process, as you all know. Brian?
And just to note, just for the public, that we had our last week's meeting that went over this pretty in depth, so we went through that.
Yeah, we've been working on this for about 4 months now. Well, you work on it all the time, but thanks for looping us in over the last 3 or 4 months. Take it away, Brian.
So yeah, we work on that. We started this in January, so it's quite a process to put a budget together, but we are bringing the tentative budget to you today. And just to go over some highlights and a summary of next year's budget. This will start July 1st, 2024 and end June 30th, 25. And on the screen are some of the budget assumptions. We're estimating about 615 building permits. As far as capital projects, we asked the departments to only budget projects that were 80% certain they'd complete. There were no new additional employees added in this. We also are handling the ARPA funds in this budget. And then just looking back at the percent coverage for the community center and the golf course, you can see in the 23 budget, the actuals, they covered 67% of their budget, and the golf course covered 92%. And the 5-year average was for the community center was 68%, and the average for the golf course was 88% for 5 years. So those are kind of some of the budget assumptions. Here's a summary of the total budget. So last year's budget, current budget is $140 million. This year's is 131 million. So you can see there is a 9 million decrease, and most of that's due to capital projects. And on that graph on the right-hand side, you can see the general fund makes up about 26% of the overall budget. So that's just kind of a brief summary of what we did this current year and next current year. And then I'll jump into the general fund. Oh, capital outlay, we'll talk about it. With capital outlay, here's a summary of capital outlay in the budget. There's 52 million in capital outlay. Now, not every project's gonna start July 1st and end June 30th, so there are some projects, especially with vehicles, there were some vehicles we ordered with COVID and all that, it took 18 months or more to get them. So there's some budget we put in the budget so we can make the purchase, and sometimes we have to carry it over. So there is some carryover in this for trucks, the Wheels Park, and some capital projects. Next, we'll jump into the general fund. So here you can see the general fund, the current budget for revenue and expenses was 33 million, and then the proposed budget for next year is 35 million. The major increase there is transfers, and that's a transfer to the capital projects for a land purchase. So that's the major reason for the increase in the expenses this year. And I did look at fund balance for this. Fund balance with this budget will be estimated right around 25%.
Or I mean, that's after those ARPA funds are applied?
Yeah.
And it used to be 25% was the max.
Yeah.
And so that's a good thing, Brian. We like to have a little in the savings account still when it's all said and done.
The other thing that really stands out on this is the intergovernmental revenue. That's up quite a bit, but that is accounting for the revenue of the ARPA funds. We have to budget those. And as on here, you can see taxes are our biggest revenue for the general fund. So I'll kind of go over those quickly. You can see property tax and sales tax are our two revenue generators. Now with the property tax, we are increasing it by 7%. That's not from property tax increases. That's only new growth. That number comes in. Every year where we're growing the city, we see a increase due to new growth. And then the sales tax, we were a little more conservative than last year. We're estimating that at 3%. So if sales tax comes in higher, then we'll be over budget, but that's fine. Sales tax is one that's hard to estimate. So that's a breakdown of the taxes. And then the enterprise funds, so the water, sewer, and electric. So here you can see their revenues and expenses of what we're planning for them next year.
And Brian, this council knows, but just for the public, will you just kind of explain an enterprise fund?
So enterprise is more a charge for service. So that means it has to cover its revenue. So they have to operate, they basically operate more like a business.
Yeah, they're not for profit. They're charging the cost of the service. Yeah. And then these are the services.
They should be charging the cost of the service plus whatever it takes to keep the uptake of it. So here you can see the summary of the enterprise funds. The other thing in the budget that is a big factor this year is our health insurance. Our premiums are down 5%, that's the first time ever. I think last year we were close to zero, but I've never seen a 5% decrease in health insurance. The average for PHP was 4.9% increase, so we're actually below that. And then we do get rebate checks from them. In December, we received a $264,000 check from PHP. And so combining that, the net decrease for health savings or the health benefit is 9% overall decrease. So as the mayor kind of briefly went over this, the next steps for the budget is we have a public hearing on May 8th, and then we would adopt the budget on May 22nd.
Is it the 22nd or the 24th? I don't have a calendar in front of me.
I think that's the 22nd.
If somebody could check that. we just, we'll need to update the resolution in the packet. The resolution just is, it says the 24th, so.
The resolution I sent to Tara was for the tentative budget, to approve the tentative budget.
Yeah, but it says the adoption of the final budget is scheduled for
Oh,
May
I
24th, so
need
we'll just need to adjust that to the 22nd on the resolution.
I'm looking at the calendar confirming the 24th is Friday, 22nd is Wednesday.
I won't get any, I won't even be here if we have a meeting on Friday night, so, let's do it on the 22nd. We'll just update the resolution to be consistent with the meeting date.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councilman Coles would take it for the team, but.
So the adoption of the budget is planned for the 22nd, and then if you have any questions or want to schedule a meeting to discuss the budget, you can reach out to Jeremy. But other than that, do you have any questions regarding the tentative budget for next year?
Council, I know a lot of you have been working hard on this. Is there anything that you want to bring up to kind of start that conversation, recognizing that we'll have additional conversation on May 8th in conjunction with the public hearing when the city manager's back, and that the final adoption will be on May 22nd. So you have a couple more stabs at it, but anything that's on your mind now is probably a good opportunity for you to get that to Brian, and as we kind of move along in this process.
Mayor, I'd just say how I've liked the process. Where this started at our retreat, we were able to go prepared and ask a lot of questions. We asked a lot of questions 2 weeks ago.
Set your priorities.
And we set priorities, and we were able to work very collaboratively with Brian and Jeremy and with Ruth and others as we've gone forward, because it's important. We understand how important it is. The funds that we administer are the citizens' money, and it's very important that we do that right. And I'm feeling very confident in the process, and confident that we're going to get it right this year for sure. And just appreciate everyone's efforts on this. This is, I think, is one of the most important things we do. So
there's no doubt. Well said, Councilman. Further comment on this? This is a big item. It's a big night.
Sure, Mayor, I do have a few suggested adjustments, to make, but I think I want to save that for when our city manager is here.
That'd be great.
Maybe a better discussion that he can help shed some light on some things, so.
Fantastic. Further conversation, further issues? Councilman Belliston, Councilman Coates?
I appreciate Brian getting this. I think we had a productive meeting last week going through some of these hard details, and I think it's good to get the tentative meeting set, or the meeting set for the public hearing, and get going on the next year's budget.
Wonderful. Councilwoman Casperson?
Well, I've spent a lot of time today
You had the red pen out
with Brian
at the last meeting.
And then we've had several meetings that I've been able to get a lot of my questions answered. And I've had recent conversations with different residents, and just them talking about the cost of living and how they despite both of them working, how it's hard to afford, just the basic needs. And so I appreciate being conservative on our numbers and moving forward and not being in a position where we have to raise taxes or anything like that. That was one of my priorities as we were talking about priorities going forward. And so I appreciate going forward how you guys are trying to be conservative with the sales tax numbers, to be mindful of our residents and their different situations that they have.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, Council, I'm going to turn to you now to ask to approve this tentative budget in the amount of $131,897,002, $131,897,002, setting the public hearing date for May 8th, and setting the adopting budget date for May 22nd, and that the resolution in the packet would be updated to reflect that.
Mayor, I'm ready to make that motion.
Go ahead, Councilman Ivey.
Motion to approve a resolution accepting the 2024-2025 tentative budget for Washington City, and setting the public hearing date of May 8th, 2024, and a potential approval date of May 22nd, with the direction that we change the date on the resolution to reflect that, and it would be in the amount of $131,897,002.
Thank you, Councilman Ivey. Would someone like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Councilman Belliston. This is a resolution, so let's go roll call. Start with Coates. Councilman Coates?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Belliston? Casperson?
Aye.
Ivey?
Aye.
The tentative budget is approved. The public hearing and adoption dates are set. Thank you, Brian. Next resolution, item 7B. This is a continuation of consideration to approve a resolution distributing the Recreation, Arts, and Parks tax to the Washington City Arts Council. And I think I did show this to most of you, but I do have on my desk when I got here this evening is a letter showing that the Washington City Arts Council is now officially a 501c3 nonprofit. Where this is a continuation, council, I'll just turn to you for that discussion. I see representatives from the council, the Arts Council here in the or here in the audience, if you'd like me to invite them forward. Come on forward, Deb. Somebody's got to break the ice on this conversation. And we're glad that you could be here this evening, and we're sorry that you weren't able to understand why that was a tough situation for you.
Yeah, to have somebody have a heart attack in your house, it was very traumatic. It's going well.
And before we talk numbers and things, can we all just turn around and look at this beautiful art at the back of the council chamber? Does it look so good?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for allowing us to do that.
You classed the place up just a little bit.
Well, look what you have to look at.
I think it's great.
How can you not smile?
I'm going to turn it to you and let you interact freely with the council on this item. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay, questions? I guess, when I wasn't here, the council had some questions, and there was a request to make an adjustment to our financials, and we have done that. I did submit that. I don't know if you got a copy of it.
I got a copy and then I forwarded it to the council.
Okay. Are there any questions that you have for me? Any further questions? I know Todd was filling in for me, and I apologize again, but so if there are any questions that you have that did not get answered, or concerns, or ideas going forward you would like the Arts Council to do, we would appreciate any input.
It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. We had I have to tell you, after you and I got on the phone, he had another heart attack in the hospital. So when you and I were on the phone, it was like they were waving me, and that's why I was in such a hurry to get off. So I apologize for cutting that phone conversation so short.
I'm sorry for
No.
I called to ask questions, and then she was at the hospital, so I feel
Disappointed in you, Councilman Gasser.
It's called dedication.
So when Todd was here, he talked about having the gala, and he gave us information about charging a price, and so there wouldn't be any costs.
Yes, what we would do is hopefully that the city building that you're renovating, the gymnasium will be available for us, because we would love to have the gala. We want people to come here to the city. And one of the greatest things an artist can do is there's a process, and if you'll humor me just for a second, there's a process in order to grow an artist and an art community in a city. And number one, you have to make awareness. You have to make aware that here in this city, we have art and we are an art community. The other thing you have to do is you have to educate people. You have to educate your artist and your community, and that's why the workshops and spending money. The other thing too is to grow the artist and grow the community. And by allowing us to show the art and have art events in the renovated gymnasium, people from all over are going to come. We've even got people asking us now, where's that building again? You know, so we are getting the word out there. There is a cost. If the city charges us rent, there's rent involved. Okay, and your whatever labels, whatever peripheral administrative things, we would want to make it very classy. So any minor cost associated with that. The other thing too is which is kind of a standard practice, whether you're a 501c3 or you're a private art organization. You invite artists to show. They pay a fee, then you take a percentage. That fee and that percentage goes back into the coffers of the tax dollars. They're turned over by then creating more workshops It's just continues to turn over to help the arts in the community.
I guess I wasn't very clear, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. He was saying that you're going to try to charge so there won't be a need, I guess, for the RAP tax funding to have to pay for that, because you're going to, whatever you cost, the expenses that you have, what you're going to charge to be able to have the artists pay is going to cover the costs
What you would
to do the event, the expenses.
Yeah, what you would have to do is back into that number, and how you'd back into that is you have to, number one, know what the facility is going to cost you, what your costs are associated with putting on a function like that, your band and all that, and then you would have to take that number and then you back into it to see what you're going to charge your people who come to see the art, what you're going to charge the artist, and that kind of thing, to make sure that it's still reasonable and that it's not off-putting to people. You're not going to charge them $100 to come and see something. So you really back into those numbers, because you have to have your basic cost down first, and then you can see what you can charge and how much money you can make to cover those costs.
Good questions. Further questions, Councilwoman?
I got a quick question.
Councilman Belson.
So how does, have you had any involvement with St. George and the different arts groups over there, and how do they function?
I was
and work?
president of Southern Utah Art Guild for about 5 years, and I ran both the Arrowhead Gallery and the Red Cliff Gallery.
Okay, so how do they, when it comes to the RAP funds, how do they, I guess, partner with the different groups in St. George?
Well, you have two different things. You have a DBA, which is your Arrowhead Gallery, then you have the Red Cliff, which is a facility that the city provides to Southern Utah Art Guild so that they can have art shows. They get RAP funds, that's the only income that they get, and like us, they'll get an occasional donation from the Minor Foundation, which is an art organization. But what they do is the same thing that we've been doing, and we actually modeled from them because it was a success for them. What they do is the artists come to show their work, they're charged a fee as they come in, and then if they sell their work, they have to pay a percentage back to Southern Utah Art Guild, which goes back into the coffers, so to speak. So, and to my knowledge, every 501c3, or any private gallery, they do the same thing.
Okay, I know there was some discussion about, I guess, with the art show where, we would be using RAP funds to promote, artists'
Right.
work, right? Like, I don't have so much of an issue when we're doing community workshops and bringing people in and helping with some of those costs, but I'm just curious how that works in the neighboring cities and other areas,
it
right?
works the same way. They actually pay, we've revisited since, Councilman Casperson brought it up. We've revisited to see how we could cut those costs down at Red Cliff. And one of the driving costs is we had marketing cost, which now we're going to do internally. And then we also had to pay a person to sit the gallery Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 4 hours a day. And that was what was costing and driving the cost up to be at Red Cliff. Red Cliff, the Southern Utah Art Guild, was also charging us $150 for the 6 weeks period of time. And that was basically to offset any damage to their panels, loss of wires, hooks, using their refrigerator, using all their stuff. So, $150 wasn't too much. So what we tried to do was look at all the cost, again, like I was telling Kimberly. Now, how do you back into that? How do you cover the most of it? And I will tell you, the sales are very low, and it's not about the sales. Once you get through a process of being an artist and going to a workshop, finding your medium or enhancing your medium, What do you do with your art? You want your art organizations to help you show to the public and to the community, this is who I am as an artist. And we give the artist a voice by having a gala or by having all about art. And then in the process, it's like a cyclical thing. What happens is like putting that little stone and throwing it in the pond. So now you've got people coming to see that. You're educating them to the art in Washington City, that Washington City can be and will be an art destination. The other thing that you have is you have artists who are validated for all that training and they get recognition. You have the collaboration with the city, you have the collaboration with other artists, and then you have almost like it just adds a different dimension to your community. And the Washington City artists are taxpayers as well. And, so
Yeah, so my sister's a struggling artist, right? And she's
Well,
got
you
her
need
stuff at two different galleries, one in Santa Fe and one in Park City.
Well,
So
she needs to
I-
come
I-
here.
I understand, the issues that they go through and all that. I'm just trying to, it's taxpayer dollars, right? And so,
Right.
I understand community events that help with people and all that, but
Right.
like I said, in her case, that's what she does for a living, and so does the taxpayer step in to help facilitate that? And that was some of the question and conversation. I mean, the gym, I appreciate the fact that it's gonna be there because, there's times where you could, that facility, due to the fact that we've been saving those RAP funds to put into a facility like that, now that exists, that can be used in perpetuity by all the different groups, right? So, I'd like to see the taxpayer dollars be able to stretch to, long-term rather than, anyway, I hope you understand kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah, and I think once we have the facility, those tax dollars will stay back here and they'll go right back into the system. Plus you'll have more tax dollars because you'll be attracting people to the city.
And it's hard to quantify the value of art.
It is.
But I look at this and I think about the value of that All About Art activity last year. It was wonderful.
And it's gonna be double this year.
It was a really nice event and a great time of year. You picked a great time to do it. And then I also just think about the fact that, we used to do RAP applications 2 times a year. You didn't put in 6 months ago. It's been a year since you've put in. And this is a great organization with great people who are doing a lot to help us kind of from the ground up build a bit of an art community. It's really exciting. Would you just kind of, we have the application in our packet, we've reviewed it, the council individually, collectively has had some back and forth. Tell us what your ask is and let's have the council kind of discuss that and make a motion on it.
Okay, what we're requesting is $33,650.
Okay, so that's down from the 35.5.
Yes.
And that's as a result of,
We took out
say
the-
that number again, 33.
$650.
Okay, so that's some of those Red Cliff Gallery
We took
costs
out
that.
all the Red Cliff Gallery
Right.
cost.
That was a bulk of that conversation 2 weeks ago.
Yes, and like I said, we have adjusted, we as a board have met, and thank you, Kimberly, for,
Councilman Casperson.
Yeah, Casperson, sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. But anyway, so after our conversation, we as a board met, and then we have come together to say, okay, well, if we do have another show at the Red Cliff Gallery, where can we wipe out the cost to that? And the only reason, again, that we're doing a show at the Red Cliff Gallery is because we just don't have a facility
Yet.
but we will. And the thing of it is, we had planned, and Councilman Ivy came to Brio. We were packed.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 300 people show up for that. So there's such a need. I mean, you could barely walk around in there. and
Again,
hear.
it's hard to quantify the value that art
Yes.
brings to a community, but it's certainly an element that we need. Council, is there any further conversation you'd like to have with Deb before I excuse her and let you discuss amongst yourselves?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to
Councilman Coe.
discuss the website development.
Yes.
So, I just want to understand, and excuse me, I forget his name, was it Todd?
Yes, Todd.
So Todd explained to us last time what his is, but I want to understand from your end why you feel like the Arts Council needs, it seems like a high dollar to make a website in the first place. And so that's why I'm just asking, what is the intent of the website?
Okay, first of all, Todd went back again since Councilwoman Casperson has talked. I said, look, we need to really get back. What can we do? So we have reduced that from 7,000 to 2,000, and Todd has found a better resource for that. But your website is who you are. It's how you get out to the public, not just locally, nationally and internationally. We get a lot of tourists here. You have Ironman coming up. We have the ability, once you have a website, we can tap in and be a part of different websites to advertise Washington's arts and the events going on related to arts internationally. And that's what we would want to do as well. And you can only really do that through a website. The other thing too is your website is your best resource to help get out the information about your workshops. Right now, we're limited. A lot of people don't use Facebook. And then you've got a whole group of people who don't use Instagram. So how do you get to everybody is you send out constant links of your website. When you go somewhere and you meet somebody, an artist or a construction person or whoever, the first thing that you ask them once you've had a conversation is, do you have a website so I can find out more about you? A website is something that we need. And then the other thing too is we can have, right now, people are having to email me personally when they want to come to a workshop. Yeah. Well, I would like to keep a part of my life a little.
So you're wanting to separate that personal and then your community service aspects of, but did that difference in website cost get adjusted in this current
Yes,
ask?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It still shows 7,000. That's why I'm
but
asking. So,
we
and
had
so my
talked-
next question would be for you, what adds up to the 33,650? Like if we went through this, if you can tell us exactly what that 33,650 is going to go for?
The website amount, or where are you looking at?
I'm just asking. So currently right now, can we pull it up?
Do you have the new one?
Yeah,
I
it's the
imagine
one
we
that I
can.
got from
So we're-
Councilwoman Casperson.
So IS or Tara, if you can pull up it's a summary financial worksheet for the RAP tax funding.
Yes, let me send that to Steve and get it on the screen.
And that second page, I think, details some of those. And I think we can do the math on that and get through this item.
And really, I mean, I think the Arts Council's been good for our community. I think you've done great, and we just want to make sure that public funds are going. The things I love about the Art Council are the programs you do for the community, with the kids and the adults. I think that's more beneficial in my mind than a lot of things, is just getting out and getting people exposed to it. I mean, you forced me into painting.
It wasn't bad.
And now
it wasn't Councilman Henderson's level, but
well, I'm never going to be to his level. I know that. But
That was just 101. You're about to go into a 102.
we'll see about that. I'll just send my kids because they're way better than me. But I'm just saying, like, you've exposed me to it, and it was pulling my arm because I don't like doing that stuff. I'm not an art person. I'm a sports person. That's just who I am. But it was fun. I learned a lot, and I got to meet a lot of great people in our community that we historically wouldn't have. Yeah. And so I can see the benefit of it. And I don't understand all of it, so I'm not going to try to. But the thing I do understand is the dollars on how we add up to get to what you want, and where we're getting our best bang for our buck.
So let me just rephrase how I hear. This ask started at 35,500.
Right.
We backed out those reductions from Red Cliff Gallery. We came down to 33,650.
Yes.
Included in this application was 7,000 for a web design.
And we've come
That's
down.
come down to 2, so if we subtract that 5,000 from the 33,650, we're now down from 35,500 to 28,650.
Right.
So I think what we're looking at discussing is, there's looking at your application, supplies and expenses, some advertising and promotion, facility rentals, insurance, and a few things, and I think those are pretty.
It still says gala. Is this a different gala?
No, that's your yearly gala,
That's our gala.
art gala.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Just
an art
making
gala.
sure I'm clear.
We just were typing that we were making the
No, that's
adjustments.
fine. As long as we're clear on what gala it is.
Yeah, gala.
So I think you're down to 28,650 if you subtract 5 from that.
Yes.
From that web design.
What was it, Mayor?
28,650 is, which I think is a pretty reasonable ask, especially since they didn't come semi-annually last year, I think.
Yeah, we missed a whole year.
And
so
and they're doing a lot, and we're not going to have this open for another year. We're doing it once a year now.
Plus, one of the things that the city should be very, very proud of is the fact that people love coming to this city. And it's evident by the people, we get people that come to our workshops from Ivans. We had one from Cedar City. They hear about our workshops and then they come here and they just absolutely love it in Washington. When you draw people for art into this community, they're buying gas, they're buying food, they're being educated to what a beautiful community this is. And a lot of times people want to know more about the city, and I think the art world in its own small little way is helping Washington City get on that map a little bit sooner.
I love that. Further questions for Deb?
So how much have we funded in past years?
I don't remember.
Do you recall, Mel?
Eris sent us an email, we could maybe find out.
23,000 the year before last, but we kind of blew through that pretty quick because we missed a whole year.
But the year before that, we had like 40, I thought.
I'm sorry. We were asking for 40 because our expectations, we had these huge expectations, to be honest with you. I didn't, as we reviewed it, it just wasn't real. We love our city so much and we want to do so much. And I think it was a little bit more than even the board. We're a small board.
I thought that was a good interaction, getting to that 23
Yeah.
A year ago.
Yeah.
But the year before, we gave more.
Yes, you gave, I think it
was-
was 30-something thousand.
I remember 40-ish.
Was it 40?
I'm not saying it was, but
I just pulled up the numbers.
we weren't awarded.
2021, it was 30,000, and then 2020, it was 15,000.
So
That
those
was
are the
when
two
And then
prior years.
2022 was 23,500.
Yeah.
And now we're just into 24, based
Right.
on this cycle.
Mayor, may I make a comment?
Make a comment, go ahead, Councilman.
So my two concerns were the Red Cliffs Art Gallery
Right.
and also the website and the cost of the website. And so I think my concerns have been addressed. I mean, on the website, we have two different websites, one for each of our businesses, our personal businesses, and there's ways you can get a website for almost free once you buy the domain name, I think, which is like $200 or $250. Then you can go on and there's templates online where you can make a professional website. Our kids made our websites for both of our businesses, and so that's why I had the concern with the 7,000, because I know you can get a really professional website for essentially free after you pay the domain name, So Mayor, my concerns, I think, have been addressed. I think it's pretty fair, and I love what you're doing. I mean, the art show in the park a few months ago was fabulous.
Yes.
I just loved it. And I'd like to see a lot more of that, and your workshops are wonderful, and
Our workshops are standing room only, so we may be talking bigger spaces here. We have standing room only and people waiting on waiting lists. So,
I really appreciate what you're
Yeah,
doing. You
thank
guys are
you.
doing a good job, and
Well,
so.
thank you. We appreciate it. We love doing it for the city because we love the city. We're very devoted, as you all know.
Well said, Councilman. Is someone ready to make a motion on this, or is there further discussion to be had?
Did you have something to cover? I was wondering, are you gonna plan as in your budget to allow to have more people be involved in those workshops where you have such a interest in those? Do you plan to be able to, for spacing or supplies?
If we had the space, we would be able to. We would, just like on May 4th, we have a workshop, which is a huge hit, and we actually are having to have 3 instructors to teach that workshop. And rather than paying them each individually, they're volunteering, and then we're only going to pay them a minimum amount, but we do have to buy the supplies. The reason we buy the supplies is you get more new artists, and then you grow those artists, and then they have their own supplies, and then that, it's not so bad. But yeah, if we had a bigger space, we'd have bigger workshops. And then we could, because like I said, people that attend our workshops are from Ivans, from St. George, Washington, it's quite a growth thing, so.
Well, I know that there's a great interest in art, and I see the value of it too. And so I'm not trying to be mean, but just
No,
like
no,
everyone.
no, that's okay.
that
You have
up
the
here,
right. You're giving us
If it
money.
makes you feel any better, she sliced the council budget too.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay, but I do expect,
That was the red pen reference.
I do expect to see your kids at our June Art in the Park for the Kids, because I am teaching a class,
Oh,
and
how
I,
wonderful.
And I am ready for a motion on this item, so who's going to put a number out?
I'll make a motion, we approve the RAP tax funds for $28,650.
Have a motion by Councilman Coates,
Oh, sorry, to the Washington City Arts Council.
I'll second that.
second by Councilwoman Casperson. It's a resolution, so we get to vote on this individual. We'll start with Councilman Henderson.
Aye.
Belliston.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
And Coates.
thank you.
Unanimously.
Thank you.
And our thanks is to you. Keep up the good work.
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a clarifying question while she's sitting? What's the age limit? Because I need some practice for our art competition. Am I too old for
It's
those
40 years old.
kids in the park?
Yes, you're too old.
It's 40.
He's a big kid on his motorcycle some days.
I'm just kidding.
All right, get my agenda, my computer timed out on that conversation. We're going to go to item 7C, still in resolutions. This is consideration to approve a resolution declaring justice court substitute judges. You've read the memo in your packet. City Attorney Thad Sigmiller will present formally on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a budget-neutral resolution, so no
Thank
dollars and
heavens.
cents needed here. This is a formality that we discovered as we're about halfway through our process of handling the judicial vacancy that'll be coming up soon. We were informed by Office of State Courts that to have a substitute judge, we would need the legislative body to authorize a list of substitutes we could pull from. And so that's the purpose of the resolution tonight. It would first be used during those weeks and maybe months between our current judge's last day and our new judge's first day. We would keep it though and use it for the spare times during the new judge's tenure, when that judge would need to be out of town. We recognize we're a one-judge court, and if that judge has a reason to miss court, we would need a substitute. And so this list would be used for both of those purposes. You'll notice on the list, we essentially just went to the justice courts that are local-ish to our location. Those are also judges who we know and interact with at the trainings and the different committee meetings and things. And so they're all friends of the city and friends of the court. And essentially, the court clerk would contact anyone from that list and try and find who has availability for a date when we were expecting our current appointed judge to not be available. You got any questions about that?
What questions do you have for our current city attorney, former justice court judge?
Yeah.
Judge, just, are these candidates here, could they potentially fill the position? And does that create any kind of a conflict at all?
I don't know the applicant list. I know it's over 10 at this point. Any one of them could be applicants to our current opening, and if they were, we would let that process do what it does. All of these are currently certified justice court judges by the Utah Office of State Courts, and so they have the current certification to perform in our court.
But it wouldn't preempt them if they were to want to apply and take the job? Okay.
It would not. There may be some conflict of the vacancies and the process where we might choose not to schedule one of them based on however the hiring process is going, but I don't think right now that I think the timing of those two processes are going to be a bit out of step anyway, so I don't think that'll be an issue for the current vacancy.
Councilman Coates.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that you've contacted these judges and they know their names on this list.
Correct, they've been contacted.
Just want to make sure you weren't just putting people on there and.
Several of them.
Guess what?
Several of them have substituted prior to this ordinance being authorized, and so, yeah, they're aware.
Any other more difficult questions for the city attorney, or if not, I'll look for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution declaring justice court substitute judges.
Have a motion by Councilman Belliston,
I'll second that, Mayor.
second by Councilman Ivy. We'll go roll call. Councilman Belliston.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
That is approved, 5-0. Move on to the next section, which is easements, item 8E. This is consideration to approve an addendum to the golf course netting easement. It doesn't get more exciting than this. City Attorney Thad Sigmiller.
This one is really interesting, Mayor. I'm gonna airplay because this is one that I think will possibly benefit members of the public that are also interested. We have businesses and neighborhoods around our golf course, and I thought that it might be something that would be appreciated to see. So I'm pulling up here. Your packets have a lot more documents than this one. But I'm pulling up here the exhibit. Let me maximize it, and then I'm also gonna zoom in just slightly. As you're aware, in 2019, the council entered into an easement agreement with the lot owners that were going to develop these hotels. And at the time, the easement agreement indicates that the purpose of the netting that was built at that time was to protect both hotel sites. And so you'll see where my mouse is here. That is the current beginning point of the netting. And you'll notice it covers about 2/3 of that empty lot. And then the netting travels all the way up along this other hotel site. Since 2019, a couple of things have just come to revelation that have flown into the purpose for why this is now requested to extend it again. One of those is the current Spring Hill Suites is still taking some damage from golf balls, and they recognize that some real creative golfers managed to get them over, under, or through that net. And so they're a little concerned that with the current plan for the building on the hotel building on the second lot, that they need to have more coverage than they anticipated. The other one is with some changes and some opportunities with detention. Originally, down in this bottom corner of this lot 2, there was going to be a above ground detention. And with underground detention opportunities, they've now extended the building to extend farther south than originally anticipated. And so the request tonight is just for, you'll see where my cursor, from this point to that point would be an additional extension of the same style and type of netting that's currently there. There would be a new pole here, a new pole here, and a new pole here. So 3 new poles, and then they would tie into the last pole of the currently existing netting. Any questions about that so far?
Yeah, Thad, I'm assuming it's the same type of material that's currently there.
Correct. The way I styled this in your packet is we're just doing an addendum to the current easement. The reason I didn't want to mess with the current easement is it had pages and pages of styles and types and materials. It was very specific, very well done by the attorney and the council at that time. And I wanted to leave all of those standards exactly what they are. The reason why is this easement is giving the hotel owners a right on city property to maintain something, but it requires them to maintain it to a standard and a level of acceptance that if they don't, we can terminate it on them. We can have them remove their stuff and leave if they don't take good care of it. And so I wanted to keep all of those standards, just allowing an additional expanse there at that bottom portion.
So remind me on this, it also requires that the space between the net and the property line is landscaped and maintained as well,
You
right?
are correct, yes.
So, because this was actually kind of contentious when it went through back then.
I can see why there might be some contention. This is an irregular transaction for the city to give an easement on city property. City leaders have wanted to be friendly to the hotel concepts right there. I know that our leaders have liked the idea of them being there.
In all fairness, over the last few years, I think they've probably done a pretty good job. I haven't heard of any issues with
the net and its
the
maintenance.
net or the maintenance or anything with the golf course or anything like that, correct?
Correct. And the golf course staff, there was a day when we all went up on site. They felt quite highly of what the hotel owners had done to maintain some of these spaces between the net and the golf course. They'd even done some work on the golf course side. This one, there's a little more just thick kind of foliage, shrubbery there that's going to be removed and cleaned up. And some of the guys like me kind of like the thick foliage, but others are really glad to have it gone. But yeah, this one, as you extend down through that, it'll clean up additional spaces. It'll kind of open it up and create a little more visibility.
Good work, Thad. The only thing I'm noticing is it's everyone who's hitting bad balls thinks they're a pro on the back tee box.
You know who it's not.
It's not me.
Because I'm not a golfer.
It's Jeremy.
It must be Mayor Nielsen.
Yeah.
All that golfing he's doing.
The Spring Hill Suites walked us through their building, around their building, and there's a lot more golf ball marks in that building than I expected, despite.
Imagine if there wasn't the net.
Exactly, precisely. And my understanding is the next project on this lot 2 is going to include you'll see the swimming pool on the current Spring Hill Suite site. There will be a much more significant connecting kind of complex of pool right through there. And so they intend to continue to really have a nice kind of feel and scaping there up against the golf course. I think they recognize that that's a beautiful hole of golf and that the scenery there is well worth the investment time in maintenance and landscaping.
Oh, that's
As I recall, the main driver was not protection of property, it was protection of the people, right? Because there's a lot of people that are out on the patios and whatnot, so there's a lot of concern with their safety, so.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Holes in stucco are a pain, but they can be repaired, but they couldn't put people on those back patios along that fairway with the way I golf, right? And I'm aware of a couple of golfers in town who are even worse than me. And so, yeah, this allows them to create those type of spaces, the pool spaces, the patio spaces. And they're beautiful spaces, they really are. When you go stand there, you recognize how nice it feels to just be there seated, having breakfast next to the golf course, right? And so they are really beautiful spaces. My understanding is, Rusty would have the best stats on this, but my understanding is that hotel is rarely vacant. Like it's a very popular hotel.
As far as average daily rate, they're leading the county.
That's what I understand is it's a very desirable place to stay.
Councilman Belliston, you've got a history on this one. Would you do the honors of making the motion?
I would love to make a motion approving an addendum to the golf course netting easement. Mayor?
Have a motion by Councilman Belliston.
Second.
Second by Councilman Coates. Well, let's go roll call just for fun. Councilwoman Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Belliston.
And Mayor, maybe just for the public's benefit, I failed to say this. Washington City is not paying for any of this. It would be all built and installed at the cost of the developers. It would be located on the city's rough area of the golf course.
Great point. And that addendum to the netting easement is approved unanimously. Thank you, Thad. Let's go on to the next item, which is 9, report of officers from assigned committees. Councilman Belliston.
I don't have have any this week.
Councilman Henderson,
I don't, Mayor, have anything, thank you.
Councilman Coates,
I haven't had any meetings since last.
Councilman Ivy.
So just want to report, I went on a very informative and enjoyable ride with our fire department. We went out and provided some essential services and just really appreciate our public safety. It's just a pleasure to be with them and to see their service, the service that they provide. Just want to mention the League of Cities and Towns Convention.
Yeah.
We were well represented there. We had some key meetings with leadership at the league, and several of our senators and representatives were there. And not only that, but we had some good engagement with our partners, with other cities and county members at the league. It's always a good time to get together. Governor's staff was there, yeah. And we're working hard on some things coming forward for this next legislative session that had some good key conversations there. We're not quite ready to bring those up, but probably the main thing I want to mention, Mayor, is that last Monday, Councilman Coates and Jordan Hess, our public affairs, myself attended the House Committee on Natural Resources event that was held over at the Rock Bowl in Hurricane. The subject was an oversight field hearing on empowering local voices and stopping federal overreach to implore the management of Utah's public lands. That's a mouthful, but what it's saying is that we need control of our lands and our waters here. We know how to control, how to implement, how to use them in a way that we can take good care of them and be able to benefit the most from them. They talked about those two local initiatives. The two local initiatives that were talked about in detail was the Northern Corridor, and then carefully considering water resource planning for Washington County. And the panelists were our Commissioner Adam Snow, Eric Clark, County Attorney, Carlos Braceras, who's the Executive Director of the Utah Department of Transportation, and Zach Renstrom, our great Water Conservancy Manager, and Darcy Stewart, who is a local businessman here. And they talked about some of the implications, ramifications of the Northern Corridor and water. It was really a good conversation. There was probably 120 people there, do you think, Councilman?
I bet there's more than that.
Maybe 150?
It was pretty full.
It was full and it was hot. We both wish that we'd taken hats that day, but it was really well attended and it was very well received. But the one message that I took from the meeting, other than the obvious conversation about those two items, is that they made a very strong point that federal land, and I would add to that state land, in some cases deprives states and localities of revenue. It's kind of an interesting concept that if you don't have something built on it, it doesn't generate a lot of income for us. So anyway, Mayor, we were well represented there. It was great seeing everyone. Again, we had a lot of partners there from the county, our municipal partners, the state, and there was Congresswoman Malloy was there, Congressman Moore, and Congressman Curtis was the chair that did a great job running the meeting. He almost does as good a job as you, Mayor Staley, in running a meeting, but it was really well done, and it was a pleasure to be there, and just really appreciated having the conversation with hopefully some good outcomes in the near future.
Well, thank you for being there, both of you. Thank you for representing. Did you have anything to add to that, Councilman Coates?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the things that caught my attention, and I don't have the numbers right off, was just how much federal land we do have in the state. And it's a good and bad thing, right? Like, I mean, you mentioned that we can't make revenue off it, but also we make revenue off how beautiful our land is and the tourism that comes to our area. So it has to be a partnership between us and the federal. And it feels like we're trying to be partners and they're not really trying to be partners with us anymore on some levels. Some levels they are. And I think the local groups do a good job, and I don't know, it's farther in the weeds than I think we have been in as a council, but I think we got to I've always said, let's just keep doing our part to work together the best we can. We can't control other groups, but do what we can to make deals to get through this, because we are the highly regulated. There's so much permitting involved with everything we do around here. but there's reason. You know, we have special species, we have special lands, and that's why people want to live here and be here. So we have to work with them. I think it's a good thing.
Well, these are great comments, and I think kind of the word that sums it up that we've been emphasizing over the last 2 years is collaboration. And so we like to do that on all levels, and that's the best outcome. Great comments. Councilwoman Casperson.
I had an interfaith council meeting, and I really enjoyed meeting the different people who are part of that council, and it's just really neat to see their goal is just to build strong communities together and do whatever they can to help. And then, as mentioned earlier, there's as the Washington City Arts Council, there's going to be this Saturday at the Relief Society Hall is going to be an intuitive painting where there's no rules or conditions, and it's at 12 to 3. And so if you need to have more information for that, you can email Deb, right? That's what you like.
No, use the website.
Yeah, or the website when that's done.
Great. And just a heartfelt thank you. I know we're in the middle of it. Cotton Days is happening. There are events tonight, tomorrow night, Friday night, and Saturday morning. So hope to see you all out there. That's all I have from my assignments. We've excused our city manager, who will be back for our next meeting. We do not have need for a closed session, so at this time, council, I'll turn for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilman Bellison, second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Aye.
Say aye.
Nay.